Hi everyone, Christina Werner here. Welcome to another video for SimonsStamp.com. Today I'm going to be using the Retro Wishes 6x8 stamp set that is included in the August 2023 card kit from Simon. This is a really fun stamp set with lots of buildable layered stamping, and I'm going to be doing tons of inking today. Now, before I got to the actual stamping portion that I used on my final card, I did a lot of experimenting with the different elements of the stamp set. And I wanted to include this video footage for you because it really shows how versatile the images in the stamp set are and how you can use them to build elements all together to go on your projects. So on the stamp set, there are different elements that are labeled with letters and numbers. Now, if it has the same letter, that means they are used together. And then the different numbers indicate the different layers for stamping. For example, these two stamp images that I'm using here first are labeled as A1 and A2. So these nestle into each other and create this really fun motif. Now, I've used two different colors of ink for this, but you could just as easily have one with gold embossing powder or different types of mediums to make this really, really fun. This next motif actually has three different layers of stamping. The first layer is this strawberry image, which I think could be really cool if you did in red on the bottom and green on top. I think that could be really neat. Then it has these leaf elements and then some smaller flowers. And the smaller flowers just fill in all of those gaps and give you a complete kind of image with all these elements together. Really, really fun way to use different colors. So if you are a very colorful person and you love having multicolor things on cards, this is a stamp set that's going to be right up your alley. Now, included on the stamp set are these large kind of triangle shapes. It's basically half of a square. So if you stamp the top portion in one color, you can then clean off the stamp and rotate it and then stamp the other, and then you have a complete square. So that's what I'm doing with these two colors for this first one. I was just experimenting, sort of seeing what I could create by stamping two different colors to create this square. And then I'm going to be stamping one of the other elements from the stamp set right on top. So this is true color ink layering, one on top of each other. And I'm going to get some different variations of color because the surface that this is stamped on is different. For the top portion of the square, it's going onto pink. For the bottom portion of the square, it's going onto yellow. So you can see as I stamp this, it has a little bit of a different color on each half. And I'm stamping the images twice so that I can get a really solid stamping. So now I'm going to stamp the interior piece of this element here. And these were labeled D1 and D2, so I know these go together and they're sized perfectly to go on top of those half square pieces. So I'm now using an orange shade to go right on top, and that finishes this motif here. I think it just looks really, really neat having all of these layers kind of overlapping. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to go with that and try doing some more layered overlapping stamping. So I experimented once again and I moved on to do an orange and aqua shaded square. And I'm going to do that flower element once again, the same image that I did the very first time. And I've used basically darker shades of orange and aqua to finish that out. And then I did the strawberry motif as well. Now the strawberry motif didn't really fit inside that square as nicely as the other ones did. I didn't mind the kind of extending past the square on the orange and aqua one. So then I came up with the idea, and here are all the ink colors I'm going to use. I'm basically using a light shade and a dark shade for each color. So then I proceeded to go on and do all of my stamping. Now, there's a lot of stamping happening here, but there was a little bit of a method to my madness here. I wanted to use the lighter shades of ink for the bottom layer of all my stamping. And then the two colors for the elements on top, I plan to use the darker of those shades. So for this first one, I used a lighter aqua for the bottom layer, and then I used a darker aqua for the design. I did the same with the purple. I used a light purple on the bottom and then stamped the element in a dark purple. So I knew I wanted more of these squares. So when I went to stamp more, I thought, you know what? I could do this more efficiently by just rotating my cardstock and keeping the stamp inside my MISTI. So this made it so that I could stamp two squares at the same time without removing the stamp from my MISTI door. And then after I stamped two, just rotating it once, I decided, you know what? I could probably even just slide my cardstock just up in my MISTI and then get another two squares. So that's exactly what I did. I slid it up in my MISTI and then I can rotate it and add two more squares. As far as the colors go, I decided I would try to do, there would be three squares with orange and three squares with pink, three squares with purple. Basically just I wanted three instances of each color. But then I still had kind of one spot left, so I thought I'd add in that yellow. So there's only one square, or in the end there'll actually be two squares with yellow instead of three. So then I started stamping all of the elements right on top, and I did the same kind of rule that I did on the previous squares, where I used the darker shades of whatever was on the bottom. So I've got a more intense yellow over the top of this yellow background. And then as I rotate this, I'm going to use a darker shade of the aqua. And this ink pad color here, right here, is actually one that comes in the card kit for August. So you do get two ink pads in your card kit. You get this aqua shade, and you also get a white pigment ink. I didn't use the white pigment ink on today's card, but you do get that ink pad. So I'm finishing off the last few spots, and I'm just using the elements to go in the middle to finish these off. I'm going to finish with a darker pink. I'm using the color Rose. And then I have all of these elements stamped with those colorful backgrounds. I think it just looks really, really neat. I wasn't sure at this point how I wanted to use them on a card, but I knew I wanted a lot of them. So 6 squares seemed great. I then took a T-square ruler and a craft knife, and I very carefully cut out each one of these squares. Now I know there are some of you out there who kind of don't want to use a craft knife. It can seem a little bit dangerous having something so sharp and cutting out so precise. But here's my tip for you. Go ahead and use a ruler and do really, really light strokes with the knife. Don't try to cut it all in one go. Keep it a very light hand. And when you do that, you'll have a very much more relaxed and better result. I haven't cut myself with a knife like this yet, or some wood so I can knock on it. But just by using a very, very light stroke, it does help me from having any of those mishaps. So now I've got these 6 squares, and I've arranged them on top of some white cardstock. I'm using some Tombow Extreme Adhesive just to glue these down onto some white cardstock, and this is going to hold them all together. Now, I ended up cutting these out and adhering them together to make a pattern. However, I didn't know how I wanted to use these, so that's why they're all cut into different pieces. But now that it's all put together, if I was going to recreate this card, I think I would probably just stamp them all side by side, because now I know exactly how I want it to look. So for my greeting, I decided to do this birthday wishes greeting, and I thought, you know what? Can I stamp it directly on my pattern? And I tried to, but because I had those cut elements, it didn't quite fill in the gaps very well. So I ended up stamping the greeting onto some white cardstock, and then I wanted to cut it out as if I had a die. Now, I don't have the dies for this stamp set. I think there are some available, or there will be. And so I didn't have them. But in order to get a really nice kind of shadow around this greeting, I used a pencil and just traced around and kind of sketched around the outside edge. So there's a tip for you if you don't have coordinating dies, but you want to make sure you have a really nice cut edge. Don't be afraid to use a pencil and draw in all of those pencil lines around your image or your greeting. And then after you've cut it out, you can use an eraser to take away any of that pencil that might be remaining. This is a great way to get a really nicely cut element. It might even look like you die cut it, but you don't have to use the dies. I put some foam adhesive on the back of my stamped pattern, and then I adhered it to a craft note card that I've already folded. Now this cardstock is included in the kit as well, so I just cut that down to an A2 card, which is 4¼ inches wide by 5½ inches tall, and then I adhered my elements right on top. I wanted to add a little more detail, so I took that T-square ruler and a white gel pen and just drew a border around my patterned piece here. I think it really brings out the white on the greeting, and it just finishes things off really nicely. After I had my white line around all of my stamping, I decided to add a few more of the elements from the stamp set, these little kind of starburst images that mimic the ones that are on my colorful stamping. So I stamped those in black and then carefully fussy cut those out so that I could add them onto my card as elements, just kind of like little star glistening sparkles. Put a little bit of honeybee glue behind each one of these and then adhered them directly to my card. So here is the finished card for today, all stamping, no dies, and super, super colorful. Thanks so much for joining me today. If you'd like to pick up any of the ink colors, the stamp set, and of course that card kit for August 2023, there will be links down below to the shop over at simonsthestamp.com. Thanks for joining me today. I will see you in another video very soon.